Good morning and welcome to Unusual Activity powered by Financial Juice. This is George Avedon along with Milton Marmonides. Glad to be here. As always, a tremendous amount going on in the markets. Certainly yesterday's day precipitated into the Asian weakness. We'll go over all of that. As we begin this trading day, let's have a quick review of yesterday's activity and what it means going into the morning. Dow Jones finished down 1.4%, 16,804.71. Excuse me. S&P 500 down 1.32% at 1946.16. We discussed various levels in yesterday's show and what it could mean for the markets. Nasdaq down 1.59% at 4422.09. We started off yesterday with a risk-off trade in the morning. There was a slight attempt at rebound early in the morning. Then we absolutely saw this precipitous downdraft for the rest of the day. There were key levels that were broken, 1960, 1950 in the S&P futures. If we take a look at the S&P futures currently, we have S&Ps up 2.25 at 1943. Quick check of where we are going into this morning. VIX at 1671. Remember, we talked about that 1650, 17 levels. We'll get into that a little greater detail in a little bit. The 10-year yield, 2.416%. We have crude oil. The big story this morning is the crude oil slightly off a bit off its lows, down 1.5 at $89.20. So remember, this is dollar denominated. We've been talking about this yesterday. The rise in the U.S. dollar, what it means for commodities going forward. A quick global geopolitics. We still have the Hong Kong protests continuing. Remember, we're in a week-long holiday in China. We're hearing, various reports, various implications of this. Still remains to be seen what the longer-term implication of this are. Still, the Ukrainian-Russian conflict continues. We discussed this yesterday. Certainly, ceasefire in question. There's various conversation around this, specifically the Ukrainian economy suffering from this long, really drawn-out conflict with Russia and its effect. Remember, we talked about the string of continuity yesterday in Europe, specifically in Eastern Europe. Also, certainly not on the political side, but also, Draghi's currently speaking. So as things are coming out from Naples, we'll certainly bring that to you. Draghi has been rather, could you call him being a bit coy with respect to what kind of information he's releasing on the what he'd like to do with the quantitative easing, the purchasing of security programs. So again, that remains to be seen. Getting into today's schedule, we have POMO between 0.85 and 1.05 billion. So certainly there's a bit of an infusion into the banking system by the Feds. Today, jobless claims at 8:30, factory orders at 10. We have the natural gas report at 10:30. Certainly, we had. We'll discuss this in a little bit greater detail. What we had yesterday with the IAE, the oil reserves. Initially, we did have that bit of a pop there, but then certainly we saw a rather dramatic decrease in the energy sector. Excuse me, let me go back one more. We are anticipating Treasury auction results today at 11 o'clock for the 3 and 6 month, 3-year, 10-year, 30-year. So again, that should be very interesting with respect to the interest in specifically those longer term maturities. We have a few Fed speakers today. We have William Dudley at 12. We have William Lockhart at 1, and I believe we have one in the evening, right, Milt? We have James Bullard at 8 in the evening. We'll put that up as well. Also, Fed balance sheet at 4:30. Moving on. So a bit of news out of Russia. You know, Putin indicating that he's as a whole, he's not interested in capital controls, but there is indication that he may do some of this ad hoc, if you will, type of capital controls on individual situations. So again, that still remains to be seen. We've seen, you know, how Putin tends to function. So there is this concern, still about concern about that from the Russian side. We had the ECB announcement this morning. They're leaving rates unchanged. We still see a negative deposit in the European negative deposit rate. So also something that's very interesting. Again, we'll talk about this more as we get into this, but we commodity ETF outflows. There was 1.1, a little bit over $1 billion in outflows from commodity ETFs. So that's really just really important to we'll get involved in that, get in a little more detailed on what that could mean for traders, investors, you know, not just for the short term, for the long term as well. Crude oil currently at $89.28, down $1.45. It was low as $88.88 this morning, so just a bit off those lows there. Let's see, gasoline down 5 cents, heating oil down, let's call it 3.5 cents. Natural gas up 0.007. We have the futures up let's call it 2 even in 1942. We'll get into the levels in a little bit. The 10-year at 2.420. One of the things we did, you know, again, we discussed this risk-off trade in the metals, and today we see a little bit of a stabilization in the gold and silver, but also, you know, we do see the platinum coming down as well. So now remember, this is all U.S. dollar denominated. U.S. ruble multi-year highs, dollar multi-year highs. What impact does that have on inflation? What impact does that have on, you know, overall perception of global economies? So let's we reviewed the 10-year, 30-year as a 3.12. Again, we still see a steeper yield curve out towards the longer maturities as compared to a month ago. So getting into the overnights a bit, we saw this carryover into the Asian markets from our markets. Nikkei down 2.61% on yen strength versus the U.S. dollar, and this concern that we've been discussing, and this concern of global growth. Also, Hang Seng down 1.28%. We discussed the Hong Kong protest. Australia down 0.68%. In Europe currently, we have FTSE down 0.12%. The CAC compare is down 0.11, and the DAX actually is positive now. It was down earlier. We'll correct that on the slide. Up 0.11. So Draghi's been has been discussing. The ECB decided on asset-backed securities and covered bond purchase program. So again, as we begin to hear more, we'll report that for you. Getting into before we get into the technical analysis, I just want to run through some of the names that are mentioned around desks this morning. Pacific Crest positive on semiconductor names, some semiconductor names with respect to some of the new Chinese guidelines for not vertical integration of semiconductor supply chain. So some of the names that are being mentioned positively are ADNC, AMAT, Intel, LRCX, OVTI, TER, and TAM. They are slightly not as negatives, not as positive on MRVL and TSM. So again, this is based on new guidelines in China for vertical integration of semiconductor supply chain. They were also positive on CUDA, Barracuda, price target of $40. Not much activity yet in the pre-market. Also, there's an outperform on GTT to $16. Let's see, outperform on ADSK. Price target of $66. We are seeing some pre-market activity currently at $57.50. Also, we do see a upgrade on, not from Pacific Crest, but we do see a upgrade on Mattel to maintaining the $31 price target maintained. They upgraded to market perform. Currently in pre-market, Mattel is at $30.77. Moving on. And we'll get into some of these, what this means, and some of these names going into today, and we'll have and we'll start discussing technical levels in just a moment. On certainly from yesterday, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FMCC, follow up from yesterday's drop. We'll discuss that. Ebola certainly in the news. We'll discuss specifically what these names mean, and really give you an example of how some news really influences these even volatile names, and we'll see that in a chart format. Word out of Buffett this morning that he says his focus is equities, not bonds. So again, really interesting perspective from a guy who's been doing this for many years and has a great global perspective on investment. GPRO founders released early from a $5.82 million share post IPO lockup restriction. So if we take a look at GoPro, we have in pre-market already currently at $89.42. Craig has been halted. We're anticipating news, see what exactly why. Also, WT up in pre-market. In possibly BHP or Rio may be interested. So, again, we're seeing some activity. WLT up already in pre-market at $2.35. Would like to go into some of what I'd like to do, go into top insider purchases, and then we'll get into technical analysis. We'll get into a bit of a review of yesterday, and going into today, what for example, Ebola names and so forth. So let's just get through the top insider purchases. If we have CCF, CEO purchasing 2,700 shares at $31.24. Average daily volume in that stock is 10,000 shares. So again, doesn't trade much, but again, a CEO buying, a quarter of daily volume certainly is significant. We are not seeing anything yet in terms of pre-market. Yesterday's closed at about $31.67. AVNW, 10% owner, buys 568,000 shares, $1.77. Average daily volume on that is 375,000. So over the average daily volume on that. So that's very interesting on that. Let's see. Nothing yet in pre-market on that. AGCO director purchases 250,000 shares at $45.86. Average daily volume 1.3 million shares. Fold, we have two folks purchasing there combined, let's say a bit over 50,000 at $6.09. Fold, 2.4 million shares. Typically trade on a daily basis, average of course. Taking a look, Fold, nothing in pre-market, finished the day at $5.91 yesterday. IKAN, we have 10% owner purchasing 27 million. Is that right, Milt? 27 million shares. IKAN at 41 cents.
Yeah. When you calculate it out, it's not that big.
Yes, it's not that big, but the a 250,000 shares traded on a daily basis, right? So clearly we want to keep an eye on that. The stock is relatively low price security. Finished the day yesterday 34 cents. So we'll continue to monitor that, and let's now spend a little bit of time. I'm going to put in the specific key levels for supports, resistance. Milt, let's talk about yesterday's day. Really important day yesterday, don't you think so? Absolutely critical support levels were broken.
Yeah, all across the board. We'll go one by one. We'll break down each level, what we discussed. We'll start with the S&Ps. The S&P levels that we constantly mentioned to you yesterday on the SPX was that 1980 number. You can see yesterday we were, not yesterday, before yesterday we touched the 1980s, 85. Couldn't break it. There was no volume on that move to the upside. And ever since that number was hit, it's been a complete meltdown. We closed yesterday at 1946.16. We're looking at this morning, it's a pretty flat opening. We have Draghi speaking. So, you're going to have a lot of whipsaws here and there. Levels to watch on the ES, we're looking at the key support level right now is at 1929, 1930 on this ES. If that level is broken, we can easily see a 1900 handle, the 1900 number coming across the board. Very large support at 1900. That is something where we are critical to watch. It's on all our screens. It's on a lot of screens. A lot of other technical traders we know. It's something, keep an eye on the number. Like I said, 1929, 1930 support. Resistance now, you're going to have that 1950 number is going to be your resistance to the upside. So you got a nice little range on the S&P futures. Let's take a look at the NQs, the NASDAQ futures. We have support levels around 3970, 3980. We're right about here on the support. It's the NASDAQ really does not have much other support until that 3900 level. But ideal support will be 3800, which is a pretty steep drop. But it's the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ. I remember I was talking with a couple guys the other day. I remember the NASDAQ was at 4,000. A couple months back. It's up 10% in a few months. So, realistically, can it hit those numbers? Possibly, very easily. Anything can happen in this market. So we're looking at those numbers on the NQ. Let's jump into the YMs, the Dow futures. we are basically right now looking at support 16,700. Is a good number for support right here. Next level on the Dow will be 16.5. If that level is broken, just by taking a peek, we're looking at 16,000 on the ES Dow. So not the ES, but the futures on the Dow. So it's we're at support. We have 200 points to our next level support. So it's a key level to watch on that as well. Let me jump into VIX. We've been mentioning for days and days about this VIX, that 1750 is that support number. Yesterday, 1756 bounced off, couldn't break it higher, broke down, closed at about 1671. That's the number to watch, guys. Everyone is watching that 1750 number for the resistance. Clearly, it's been working. We've hit it a couple times. We hit 16 something. We hit 1709 the other day. We hit 1756 yesterday. So clearly, that level is a level to keep a close eye on. Once that breaks, if it breaks to the upside, expect a downward move in the markets. If it can stabilize here and break down from these resistance levels, think of a pop coming soon. So mark those numbers down. We got that 1750 on the VIX resistance, support 13, 14. So that's where it's been trading the past few weeks to months. Then we'll take a peek at the oil. We've been mentioning oil for days as well. We mentioned numerous times the support level on oil has been 92.50. Once it broke that support level, it hit a low of 88.18 this morning. A $4 drop on oil is nothing to smile at. It's something that, it's a big number, especially when it comes to a commodity trade. So clearly that support was broken. You can see the move on the downside once that was broken. Now 92.50 becomes resistance. That's a key level resistance to watch. That if it breaks, we can see a nice 97.5 number. But clearly technical analysis is being watched, is being played. We give you some good examples so you guys can understand what we are looking at on a daily basis, the levels we look at to form our decisions and to pass along our information. It's something that, even if you don't trade technically, it's always something to keep a close eye on. Watch the levels. We give you the numbers. You just watch them and trade around them if you can. I'll give you a quick rundown again before I pass it back to George. ES key support levels right now are at 1930, major level of support around 1900. The NQ, we're looking at support around 3970, 3980 with a major level around 3900. The key level is that 3800 though, so that could see some sort of a downside if the selling continues. We're looking at the YM Dow futures right here at support at 16.7 with a nice little level at the 16.5 number. The VIX levels, that's what we've been mentioning to you for the past, how many days, George? Every day the past week?
Every day.
1750 on the upside resistance to about the $14 support level. The CL levels right now, 92.50 was support, was broken. We mentioned it for days the past few days. Was broken. As you can see, it hit a low of 88.18 this morning pre-market. 92.50 now becomes resistance. Support level right now, if you look at the CL on a 2-3 year chart, you're looking at $88, which is basically where it currently is. So the range right now is between 88 to 92.50. I know it's a big range, but it's a key level to watch. You don't want to see 88 break. After 88, we got low 80s coming. So,
Correct.
88 is a number to watch on the support. Watch that 92.50 on the upside. If that upside breaks, you can see a 97.50 handle. So, guys, hopefully these levels are, helping throughout the day. George, throw whatever you have to throw in as well.
I think you bring up a really good point, and this is something that we were talking about during the day yesterday, and I think we agree on this. And there's this notion that the sentiment is changing, right? When you're starting to see key support levels being broken consistently, clear across various indices, clear across whether it's energy, commodities, there's a perception in the change of sentiment, right, Mel? And that's something that's absolutely crucial, because when everything is rosy, everybody's high-fiving each other, and on markets going higher, and when there's a little bit of bad news, they shrug it off, correct? But when there's a sentiment change, when the perception of bad news changes as well, right, Milt? That's
Oh
something
yeah.
that's absolutely crucial to maintain. I believe that that's where we're entering right now. Listen, it may adjust in the next few days, but that's our perception that this is changing. Perception in the market is changing. So one of the things that we wanted to bring up um, is this concept of how news affects. Well, actually, before we get into that, there's a lot of news coming out. This is just something for pure educational value here on a lot of times we get information on leading indicators and what it means. So what we did was just pulled a couple of things together. I'm going to show it to you on a slide. Forgive me. Let me just change the slide very quickly here. Um, so what you'll see here is just what are the leading indicators, and what are leading indicators is what they're anticipating the changes 6 months out, right? So average weekly hours, average weekly initial claims. Certainly, we have that on a weekly basis. Manufacturers, new orders. This is clear across economic. It's global economics. So. And this is very important for the trader to understand. It's critical for the investor to understand, and the effect on the markets. That's really the implication here. Um, Certainly, you have S&P 500. Always, the S&P 500 has always been a leading indicator. Interest rate spreads, of course, and consumer expectations for business conditions. In today, going through what we're anticipating for IPOs, AACs coming out, ATTO, CALA, JPEP, VWR, and W. So again, we'll see how those price out and see how the market digests that, how they are digested in the marketplace. One of the things that we wanted to go over quickly, we wanted to just put up a chart, IAE. This is as of 2012. When we talk about Russia, when we talk about natural gas, these are the countries that rely on Russia's natural gas exports. So you see Eastern Europe 24%, Germany 24%, other Western Europe countries 10%, Turkey 19%, Italy 11%. So we have to bring everything into perspective with respect to how geopolitics are involved in dealing with Russia and sanctions, what it means, and so forth. So again, just wanted to really show you that. I thought it was really interesting. One of the things we wanted to bring up, we always bring up the notion of understanding how a news headline affects particular stocks during the trading day. So, for example, one of the things that so we know that Ebola is in play. We know that um, TKMR and various other securities are in play with this Ebola headlines, and we'll continue to see Ebola headlines uh, throughout. I can't imagine that it's going to disappear in terms of headlines and how it affects these particular securities anytime soon. So at 111, for example, a headline was detected that Texas Governor Perry indicated that children may have been in contact with Ebola patients. So again, certainly tragic or potentially tragic from a social humanitarian perspective. Um, how does that affect a particular security? We see that when that information first came out, not much on this particular security in TKMR, but then within about, I would say, 20, 30 minutes, we really saw this precipitous increase in the security, interest in the security. So again, we see this impact of news headlines, and that's in our chat. We do our diligence with respect to what kind of headlines we put into the chat, and how it can affect a particular security. Um, Going on to bear with me here. For example, if we take a look at Brookdale Senior Living Incorporated, we detected a large option trade. So we began to talk about options yesterday and what it could mean for the overall security. What's the underlying security? So at 2:31, we detected a large option trade. So a trader bought BKD January 32 and a half calls. I'm sorry, I don't have the actual contract, but we typically only detect large option trades. So in this case, we saw this at 2:31 BKD. So what does a call mean? Let's do a quick 30-second remedial type of a lesson here. So when somebody buys a call, they buy the right to purchase it, the security. For example, in this case, in January, by January expiration at 32 and a half, we saw uh, not much volume in that, but we did see a increase in the security price from about 31.51 to approximately 31.73 again. So in this case, when we're talking about options, when we detect particular option trades, and this is something that a trader really has to keep in mind, it has a tendency to affect the underlying security. So someone out there is putting out a bet that the security will increase in value, and they're doing it in a large contract. Moving forward, New Link, for example, this is interesting here. So sometimes random news may affect a particular security. So 2:01, we detected a headline that from New Link Genetics that the CEO was to appear on CNBC's Fast Money. You'd think that that doesn't typically have an effect on a particular security. If you take a look at, it came out at 2:01. We saw an increase in volume, we saw from 22, let's call it 22, just below 22.90 to all the way, we're looking at almost more than a point within, what, 10, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. So I think that's really important to understand that even the more odd headlines, news information can affect a particular security. At 1:35, Ocean Rig UDW Incorporated, we detected a large option trade where ORIC, a trader put on 2,000 contracts, so puts at $1.90. We saw basically a put again is the right to sell a particular security by expiration at a particular price. So again, we saw a put is clearly negative. It's a bearish indicator when somebody purchases a particular put. So we see this downdraft as well. So again, we always bring up the value of news within the market day. We always bring up why a trader really should keep an eye on not just the technical analysis, although that's absolutely critical. Why they should keep on, there's a lot of traders that are quantitative based and numerical based. That's crucial as well. But also keeping an eye on that news does affect particular securities, not just in overnight, but also in intraday. Some of the syndicates for today, DGLY certainly has been in play within last few weeks. DGLY files to sell 1.19 million shares MRD files to sell. 27.8 million shares for holders. Uh, Nothing currently going on in the pre-market yet. PTLA files to sell 10 million shares to holders. Not seeing anything yet in pre-market, and RDUS. Bear with us. RDUS files to sell common stock. So typically, actually, RDUS in pre-market currently at 18.55. So that's lower than its close of 19.50, $19.15. So typically, when a company sells files to sell, whether it's shares or mixed shelf, they're looking to raise money. It has a dilutive effect on the share price, so it's typically a negative. But again, initially, but it remains to be seen what they will do with that particular money. Are they, putting more money into R&D and so forth? So just a quick check of the markets. I know. In overnight, bear with us here. Europe down 0.42%, FTSE down 0.30%, I'm sorry, FTSE is down 0.3, excuse me. CAC is down 0.48, DAX is down 0.16. The futures, we have S&P futures down now 2.5%. Again, let's go over what we're looking at with respect to the levels. We're looking at a support level of 1930 on the futures. 10-year, we're at 2.412. Keeping an eye on that. And one of the things that's been coming out is not just what Draghi is going to do with asset-backed securities in Europe. There's been talk whether or not, again, this is just conversation, whether or not Draghi will be purchasing U.S. Treasuries. So that's, we know that QE is ending in the U.S. What impact will, should that even come up in conversation? What impact will that have on Treasuries? Certainly remains to be seen. Oil down 1.28 at 89.46, which is a bit off those lows at 88.88. Gasoline down 5.5, down 0.0537. Heating oil down 0.0371. Natural gas down 0.039. One of the things that came out yesterday, we had this decrease in the commodities and energy. There was conversation that it really felt like there was a large commodity fund that was unloading, unloading their positions. So that only meaning just the feeling. So it's not that it was happening, but there was a very large selling pressure in the commodity and energy space. So that's something to keep an eye on. As we begin to wrap up, a couple of things. Certainly, we're listening to Draghi. We're listening to not what he'll say, but well, certainly what he'll say. He's been a bit coy with respect to everything he's going to do. The conversation he's going to begin small and enlarge that balance sheet. And what impact will that have on European bonds and again on the U.S. So as we're finishing up, we want to thank you for joining us. One of the let's see if there's a quick check on some of the more Ebola names. TKMR. Bear with this one moment. TKMR currently at 24.80. We saw a very large volatility in TKMR yesterday. So we'll see how that comes into today. We'll also put on when we put this on the website. We'll also put in the other names to watch for Ebola going into today. Certainly, those headlines will continue. So keep an eye out. We mentioned a lot of levels in the futures to keep an eye on. So we thank you for listening, um, and we wish you a happy hunting in today's trading day. Again, watch those levels, and certainly monitor those macroeconomic, geopolitical news, because our perception is that they are impacting the overall market. So this has been Unusual Activity, powered by Financial Juice. This has been George Avedon and Milton Marmonides. We thank you for joining us, and happy hunting.